Whether or not you guys believe it, I like to be positive when it comes to video games. I mean, typically when I'm negative on this channel, it's towards a game that I actually really like. As a result, there aren't a whole ton of games that I actively hate. As you would imagine from the title of this video though, there are a few games out there that I really don't like. As you would imagine, I could only think of 8 games that I had played long enough to make a fair judgment on that I really didn't like. Also, I'm just gonna say it right now, I'm not going to be including mobile games on the list, because let's face it, that would kinda be unfair. Now, before I start this list, if you like any of these games, that's fine. I just didn't get as much enjoyment out of them as you did. Besides, I know there's at least 2 games on this list that a lot of people are gonna disagree with. So with all that explaining out of the way, let's begin. Oh boy, right off the bat I am painting a huge target on my back. And by this point I'm used to it. Give me a chance to explain myself though. I'm well aware that the Kingdom Hearts series has grown massive and that gamers owe it to this game for starting the series in the first place. And you know, I'm sure it was a big deal when it came out, but I just really don't like it. But let me explain why I don't like it. First off, the levels aren't really that good, especially when compared to the second game. While this is also probably from bloated expectations, the combat in this game really isn't as good as I would have liked it to be. I guess it just felt kinda stiff and basic. Not to mention in some areas, I feel the game really isn't that good at telling you what you have to do next. But you know, I would still hate this game even if it weren't for any of those flaws, because we're getting to the biggest flaw here. The boss battles. The original Kingdom Hearts has some of the most frustrating bosses I've ever faced in a video game. I've rage quit numerous times on bosses like Riku Ansem and Dragon Maleficent, and I played the final mix version of this game. I can't imagine the nightmares people would have to go through having to watch the same overlong cutscenes every single time they try to fight the boss again. I will admit, there were some aspects of this game that I really did like, and I did want to like this game. But any good aspects this game had, I can just find in Kingdom Hearts 2 when I play it. Well, would you look at that? Another Disney-themed game that was way too hard for its own good. You know, at first I really hated this game because it claimed to be an epic Mickey game while pretty much missing the entire point of the series. Like, hey, let's have Oswald in the game, but have him do nothing, and just not have Gus in the game at all. Also, let's go to all the iconic Disney worlds, because clearly that's what Epic Mickey was about. But then I started to warm up to this game. I mean, the touchscreen painting gimmick was done pretty well, the level design was decent, and I really liked the gimmick of the fortress. I liked a lot of the mechanics that the game had, but then, halfway through the game, it took a turn for the worse. Halfway through the Aladdin world, the game got way too hard for its own good. Like I said before, I don't hate hard games. I prefer easy games, but I don't mind hard games. At least when they feel fair, and this game does not feel fair in its difficulty. I rage quit this game in the third world, which is actually the last world in the game. You know, I would really complain about that if I liked this game, but I don't. Next entry. SpongeBob Creature from the Krusty Krab for home consoles is a pretty fun 3D platformer, not as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom, but still pretty good. The DS version of the game though, not so much. Now, most SpongeBob games on handhelds aren't really anything that special, but this one has a special kind of bad. Would you believe me if I told you that it's only one thing that actually puts the game on this list? Because it is. That would be the control scheme. This game is quite possibly the dumbest control scheme in any video game that I've ever played. Basically, what you have to do is swipe in a certain direction and your character will automatically move in that direction. You have to tap any enemies to stun them and interact with any objects along the way using the stylus. And now I think you can see why it's so bad. Why would you ever want to play a 2D platformer that controlled like this? But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what happens when you encounter a jellyfish. If it manages to latch onto you, it'll go into the world of the upper screen, and in order to keep you from losing a life, you have to scream into the DS's microphone. And this is a handheld game too, so you could be in the car playing it and you're left with a choice. Do I either lose a life or look like a freaking maniac in front of everyone? This is just taking a look at what control schemes the DS has and trying to abuse it in the most gimmicky way possible. Honestly, what this game's controls did with the DS feel very reminiscent of what Ninja Breadman's controls did with the Wii. Although maybe that's a bit unfair. I mean, this game's controls, while stupid, do actually respond, unlike Ninja Breadman, which for the record I haven't played, so don't expect to see it on the list. Hey look, it's my old punching bag, Paper Mario Sticker Star. Yeah, those of you who have been following my channel would know that I have not been kind to this game. In fact, out of everything I've talked negatively about on my channel, I think I've talked negatively about this the most, probably even more than the Meat Circus and Game Theory. Whether it be top 8 Mario RPGs or top 5 worst video game sequels, I have ranted on and on about this game. So I'll just sort of skim over the main points this time around, because I think by this point you kinda get the idea. You don't level up in battles, they're pretty much pointless. They just give you more money to buy more stickers so you can fight in more battles. The story in this game is absolutely terrible. They only have the main Mario characters and it's the same Bowser kidnapping Princess Peach story. The 6 royal stickers I'm supposed to be collecting have no backstory to them whatsoever. Nothing is known about them other than the fact that they're powerful. What's that? I should give them credit because they had to work around both only having the main Mario characters for the most part and having to deal with an odd gimmick to incorporate into the story? I'm sorry, but Mario and Luigi Dream Team and Paper Jam pretty much proved that neither of those things are an excuse. Also, the navigation in this game is terrible. Despite modeling itself after New Super Mario Bros., it's surprisingly easy to get lost in this game and not know what you're supposed to do next. Now, I'm sure there are going to be some of you guys out there who say that you like this game and that objectively it's really not that bad. But like I said before, this is my list of the least favorite games that I've played. It has nothing to do with the actual quality, just how much I didn't like them. The reason I'm clearing this up now is because I know there will be some people who will shoot on sight the moment they see the next entry. Now, if you like The World Ends With You, good for you. I know there's a lot of people out there who like this game, but for me, I really don't. And you know, I think that's mainly due to personal preferences. This game feels really out of my comfort zone, I guess you could say. But now I really think I should get into why I don't like the game. First off, I felt the combat in the game was way too complicated for my taste. There's a bunch of badges that you need to buy and equip, and I guess I didn't realize that I had to keep buying new ones, so my attacks were barely doing anything towards the end of the game, and as you would imagine, I was met with a pretty impossible task when I got to the final boss. I also didn't care for the combat either, as it required some of the biggest amounts of multitasking fathomable. Well, not really, but it's still pretty ridiculous. Basically, you attack on the bottom screen with the stylus, and on the top screen with the control pad, and you have to do both at the same time. Do JRPG fans just have an insane amount of hand-eye coordination that I don't know about? Also, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a big fan of the story either. It had some good reveals in it, but I honestly didn't find myself liking most of the characters. In terms of the characters, I really only liked Beat, Mr. H, and Sho Minamoto. I disliked pretty much all the other major characters, especially Joshua. Also, some of the moments in the game just kinda made me feel uncomfortable. Like I said before, I totally get why people like this game, but I just really don't. When I was younger, I used to really love the Nicktoons crossover games. In fact, Battle for Volcano Island is one of the most nostalgic games out there for me, and I still think it's fun to go back and replay. Attack of the Toybots wasn't that great, but it was fun at some points. But we're here today to talk about Globs of Doom. First off, there are a couple nitpicks I have with the game. First off, some of the choices they made were questionable. Tak is in the game, despite the fact that his show barely lasted. Yet Timmy Turner's not in the game despite Fairly Odd Parents still running. In fact, SpongeBob is the only one whose show was actually still running when this game came out. I guess that's how he got in the title. Also, some of the character models, particularly Jimmy Neutron and Dib, just look off. But you know, for the most part, I thought the game was pretty fun. The levels were pretty nice, the combat wasn't too bad, and the cutscenes, just like always, were a joy. It's nothing amazing, but it is a pretty fun game. Now I know what you're thinking. If I actually like this game, then why is it number 3 on a list of games that I hate? The answer to that is simple, my friend. Save file corruption. That's why. Now, as you guys know, I never get my own footage for this. That was from the Wii viewer, so I know it's not just me who's experienced this problem. He wrote it off as a one-time glitch, but I've played this game to know that's not the case. I've had 2 separate copies of this game. both of which had the problem. And it didn't just happen once, oh no, it happened many times. Every time I turned the Wii off, I'd hope that all my progress wouldn't be lost and I wouldn't have to start all over again. Strangely enough, I've talked to people who this has never actually happened to. So maybe it only happens to some people, I don't really know. All I know is that this game is number 3 on the list. What, you guys didn't think I would forget this one, did you? Now I bet you guys are wondering why Sticker Star ranked higher on my worst sequels list while this one ranks higher on here. That's because of the fact that Sticker Star was ruining the legacy of 3 games, while this game only had 1 before it. Plus, this game was released only a couple weeks after LEGO City Undercover. So as a sequel, there's not too much to get mad at this game for. As a game, on the other hand, that's an entirely different story. First big problem with this game, the lack of voice acting. The original game really thrived when it came to its voice acting and humor. This game, though, is severely lacking in that department. Outside of the cutscenes, the humor's really lacking. And believe me, these cutscenes do not appear often. And there really is no excuse for this. I mean, there was a LEGO Ninjago game that also came out on the 3DS, and it was fully voice acted. It really doesn't make any sense. LEGO can get both Morgan Freeman and Arnold Schwarzenegger to voice cameos in LEGO City Undercover, yet they can barely get anyone to voice in The Chase Begins. A lot of things in this game feel a lot slower and more dragged out than they did in the original LEGO City Undercover. At least towards the beginning of the game, the missions you're doing are really uninteresting. I mean, the very first mission of the game is just you helping feed Dunby's donut addiction. You know, compared to the first mission of the original game, which was stopping a bank robbery. I'm well aware that as the game progresses, you go on to stop actual criminal operations. But the fact of the matter is, everything in the game just felt so unmemorable. And considering the fact that this game is a prequel to the original LEGO City Undercover, that's a big problem. In fact, this game's existence in general doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Seriously, who was the guy who thought it would be a good idea to put a GTA clone on a handheld? As much of a train wreck as this game is, though, there is one positive I can give it. It's not number 1. You know, I don't know whether or not I should trust Disney when it comes to video games. On one hand, they gave us the Epic Mickey games and Guilty Party. On the other hand, they gave us this abomination. Disney Universe, the absolute worst game I've ever played. What's worse than a terrible LEGO game? How about a terrible rip-off of a LEGO game? Are there any positives to this game? Well, the opening cutscene's kind of nice, and the movies represented here are at least varied, but that's really stretching to find a positive with this game. So what do you do in this game? Simple. Travel through the worlds of a bunch of different Disney movies, fighting enemies and completing a bunch of really boring objectives. You can do the worlds in any order you want, except Pirates of the Caribbean. They make you go to that one first. And let me tell you, it's one of the most poorly lit levels I've seen in any video game. It's actually pretty hard to come up with things to get mad at this game, because while the others had a lot of flaws I could pick apart, this one is just nothing. That's essentially what it is. It's hard to criticize nothing. You probably haven't heard of this game because it quickly fell into obscurity. The Let's Play I found of it didn't even bother to finish the whole game. I know I already brought the Wii Viewer up, but I think that his kid, the Little Wii Viewer, summed up this game's entertainment value perfectly.
Hey Little Wii Viewer, what did you think of Disney Universe?
Maybe if you're super bored one day, it's a rent, but other than that, you should skip it. I'd rather do my homework than play this game.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That's pretty much my thoughts on this game. You know, I don't really have much more to say. I am Defoffilizer, and I hope you enjoyed this video.